All right, 7th graders, we're on our way to the second method to solve systems of equations. You can solve a system of equations by graphing when the solutions contain integers or when you have a graphing calculator. Another method for solving equations through a system of equations is using the substitution method. Now here's what it means. By replacing one variable with an equivalent expression containing the other variable, you can create a one variable equation. This is important. You're basically taking an equation with two letters that you can't solve and only getting an equation with one letter. And then you're just going to solve it like you did back in 6th grade. So let's start with an example. Example number 1. Using substitution, we're going to solve each of these equations. So we have y equals negative 4x plus 8 and y equals x plus 7. Here's what you're going to do. Step 1. You want to make sure that only one of the variables, or both, but at least one of the variables, has any letter by itself. You could have the y by itself. You could have the x by itself. And it could be either one of these. Now, notice that each equation is solved for y. So the first step is done for us. So here's what we do. Y is equal to negative 4x plus 8. Or you could take x plus 7. It doesn't matter. But let's go back to like 5th grade math. If I told you x is 6 and we had x plus 1. If you were ever told to substitute x equals 6 in, what did you do? You took the x out and you plugged in what x was equal to. The same thing is true here. The y is equal to negative 4x plus 8. I'm going to take this expression, what y is equal to, negative 4x plus 8, and I plug it in to the other equation. And so the other equation would become negative 4x plus 8 equals x plus 7. And notice what happened. We now only have one letter. And now we just solve this equation like you would solve a one variable equation. So I'm going to subtract x on both sides. I'm going to subtract 8. That gives me negative 1. I divide both sides by negative 5. And I get x as 1/5. So we know x is 1/5. But we still need to find y. So you have to take then x equals 1/5 and plug it into either one of the equations. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going to take the second equation, it looks easier, and I'm going to plug in 1/5 for x and then solve for y. So that means y is 7 1/5. Now once again, you're more than welcome to write these as decimals, improper fractions, mixed numbers. It doesn't matter to me. So your answer here, and if you did plug these in, it would work. But your answer is 1/5 and 7 1/5. Now example number 2 is just harder problems. So let's solve this, and I'm going to write this down. 3y plus 2x equals 4, and negative 6x plus y equals negative 7. Now here's where your wonderful thinking ability comes in. If you pick any of these letters and solve the letter and get it by itself, that's okay. I could get this y by itself. I could get this x by itself. I could get this x by itself or this y. 3 of them will give you fractions. 1 of them will not. Which letter do you think would be easiest to get by itself, x or y? And in which equation? Here's what I look at. Do any of your variables have a coefficient of 1? Yeah, it does. This one has a coefficient of 1. This has a coefficient of 3, 2, negative 6. This one has 1. So I'm going to solve the bottom equation for y. So that gives me y equals 6x minus 7. So this equation is now gone. Now, I'm going to take that expression. What does y equal? Y equals 6x minus 7. I'm going to take that value and I'm going to plug it in up here to the first equation for y. Do not plug in the equation to itself. Some people are like, oh, I'm going to take the 6x minus 7 and plug it in right here. No, you can't plug it into itself. You plug it into the other equation. So if I plug it in, this is what I get. 3 times, in parentheses, 6x minus 7 plus 2x equals 4. And now you just solve the equation. I distribute. I'm going to add 18x and 2x and get 20x. I'm going to add 21 and get 25. I divide both sides by 20, and I get 1 1/4. So, x is 1 1/4. I now plug it in. Now you can plug it in here to the first equation or here to the second equation. Personally, if you're trying to find y and right here is already by itself, I would take this x and plug it in right here. That gives me 6 times, or y equals 6 times 1 1/4 minus 7. Well, if you solve that, 6 times 1 1/4 minus 7 would give you a half. So my ordered pair would be 1 1/4 and a half. All right. The next example, if you think you got it, great. You can skip it, or you can skip ahead to see what the answer is. So let's solve this one. 6y plus 8x equals 28, and 3 equals 2x minus y. Step 1, get the variable by itself. Now I look at this and I think, okay, I would have to divide by 6 here, divide by 8, divide by 2. Oh, here's a -1. That to me would be easiest. So I'm going to get the y by itself. So I'm actually going to add y and then subtract the 3. Now you could have subtracted the 2x and divided everything by a negative. That's okay. But I moved the minus y to the left and the 3 to the right. So I'm going to take this value here and I'm going to plug it in up here for y. And that's going to give me 6 times 2x minus 3 in parentheses plus 8x equals 28. I distribute. Add like terms, add the 18, that would be 46. And 46 divided by 20 would be 2.3. If I take the x and plug it back in, I'm going to plug it back in up here. Y equals 2 times 2 3/10 minus 3. That gives me 4.6 minus 3, which gives me 1.6. So my answer would be 2.3 and 1.6. All right, example number 4. 7y plus 2x equals 9. And let's do, let's see, 2x equals 15 minus 7y. Now, here we go. This is where the fun part comes in. There's nothing easy to get by itself. I would have to divide by 7 here, divide by 2 here, divide by 2, divide by -7. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick one. I would much rather divide by 2 than 7. So I'm just going to solve the bottom equation here for x, since it's almost already done. So I'm going to divide everything by 2, and that's going to give me x equals 15 halves minus 7 halves y. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to plug it in right here. So if I plug it in, that gives me 7y plus 2 times 15 halves minus 7 halves y equals 9. So I distribute the 2, and that gives me plus 15 minus 7. Hey, great, we got rid of our fractions. Equals 9. Oh, wait a minute now. 7y minus 7y. those cancel. I'm left with 15 equals 9. What does that mean? Does 15 equal 9? Guess what? This has no solution. Because these are actually parallel lines. But when you get two things that don't make sense, it's no solution. Had you gotten an answer that looked like this, you canceled and you got like 15 equals 15, this would have been infinitely many solutions. So if you get something where two numbers are not equal, once the variables cancel, it's no solution. If they are equal, it's infinitely many solutions. I know this one says example 3, but we've done other examples up until this. Real world problem solving. Your school is planning to bring 193 people to a competition at another school. There are 8 drivers available and 2 types of vehicles: schools, buses, and minivans. The school buses seat 51 people each, and the minivans seat 8 people each. How many buses and minivans will be needed? This is fun. So, step 1. Tell me what you need to find. You need to find buses and minivans. So I'm going to let buses be B and minivans be M. So we have to write 2 equations with 2 variables. So let's see what we know. We know that we have a total of 193 people. So I'm going to write this down. We know people, so this equation has to do with people. Now there are 8 drivers available with 2 types of vehicles. Now, 8 drivers. That means I would have a total of 8 buses or minivans. So if I have B buses plus M minivans, that gives me 8 total vehicles because I have only 8 drivers. The school bus seats 51 people each. So the school bus, so that means the bus has 51 people for the bus, plus the minivan can seat 8 people each, for a total of 193 people. So my equation is going to be 51b plus 8m equals 193. And then b plus m equals 8. Okay, here we go. Solve it. I'm going to solve the bottom equation for b. You could also solve it for m. It's okay. So I'm going to get b by itself, and that gives me 8 minus m, or negative m plus 8. I'm going to take this and plug it into this equation for b. That gives me 51 times 8 minus m plus 8m equals 193. 51 times 8 gives me 408 minus 51m plus 8m equals 93. All right, I'm just going to keep going here. 416m equal, that's not right. Let's change that. That gives me negative 43m. I'm going to subtract 408 on the other side, equals negative 215. And 215 divided by 43 will give me, well, it'll be positive 5. Negative divided by negative. So m equals 5. What does that mean? There are 5 minivans. Now we know we have a total of 8 vehicles, so we just take 8 minus 5. That means we have 3 buses. So we have 3 buses and 5 minivans.